Welcome to Pound for Pound ATL, arguably the best place to get facts and opinions on your Atlanta Falcons. And absolutely the best place to get your opinions in. The conversation starts now.
What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL Live. As always, joined by my main man, Toby D. And today, we're joined by some very special guests, Antonio and Rashad from the Extra Point podcast. They were so gracious and kind enough to jump on with us tonight as we dive into like the ramp up to training camp. We're coming out of that dead period, and we will be getting into talking about training camp. Aha, there's another special guest. I knew this was going to happen. Everybody say hello to my little daughter, Ellie. Okay. Anyway, right. So, needless to say, we had the biggest news blow, right, today. As some of us were getting off work, finishing up work, we got the news that one of our more like exciting off-season signings that we had 2 weeks ago, we signed Eddie Goldman, and we were like, oh yes, finally, another stalwart defensive tackle to put in the middle of this defense, pairing next to Grady Jarrett. And then we get the news today that he decides to retire. I don't know if he took a look at the forecast and was like, nope, I'm too big and that's too hot. I'm not sure exactly what transpired, but he said that he didn't want to play no more and he's taking his talents elsewhere. Guys, Antonio and Rashad, I want to get y'all's opinion first. How'd that land with y'all?
Well, I was just getting off of work. I'm getting off of work. I'm refreshing my Twitter feed. I'm doing all that. So, anytime before I refresh my Twitter feed, it had a little 3 boxes at the top and it'll show you. I seen ATL. I'm like, oh, okay, let's see what little news, our team page, put out today. And then when I seen the statement, I said, well, hold on, what now? So I pulled my phone closer, and I was just like, I'm like, training camp is next week.
Yeah.
I understand the rookie shoulder. I was like, but training camp is next week. I was like, what is this? Like what is going on? Because I was excited when we signed.
Oh yeah, dude, I was pumped.
Talking about, I was getting those I got when we signed Poe a few years back when we lose all that weight, and it was a perfect scenario. So I was looking at it from that standpoint, and it was just a dagger. But throughout the afternoon, more and more information has been coming out, and from what I'm seeing from many of people, I don't know if it's true or not, but a lot of people, even Bears fans, was chiming in and was saying it's like a lot of hardships they felt like he had going on with his personal life, especially sitting out 2020 because of COVID. And a lot of people said that just hardships in his personal life and that drive that he had for football, they just felt like it really wasn't there anymore. And I'm like, and if he did or if he does have any personal hardships, I'm gonna say, man, best of luck to him. I hope he can get through that. If that's what it was. It was just like, I was like, man, dang, I wanted to see it, but I'm like, if that is the case, then man, prayers to him, and
that's it.
Just,
yeah, right.
Just enjoy retirement, man.
Toby.
Me. I'm Go ahead, Antonio. Well, first of all, before I get out what I'm about to say, hopefully everything, is go well in his life, whatever he got going on. We, pray for him and everything. But I was just like, ain't this some Atlanta Falcons type mess right here? Every time we got something good going on, we on the train, we rolling. Something just had to happen.
Something got to derail it.
Got to get for. But that was basically it right there. You know, I was excited that he signed on with us. I was ready to see it. And now we just gonna have to find another way or go another route to get that same caliber guy.
Right. Toby?
That was a blow, man. I mean, I'm still hurt from it. Like, I'm really hurt. I spent a lot of time Saturday really studying this guy. I watched so much film from, 2018, 2021, and to hear that this guy decides that he's going to retire like a week and a half out from camp, that just caught me off guard, man. Because when you text me, JR, you like, well, there goes that. And I'm like, with Eddie Goldman, I'm like, well, what happened? And then I go on Twitter and look, the man don't retire. And I'm like, dude, so if this is how the season for the Falcons is going to go, we just can't catch a break.
It seems like that at times. It seems like, things just aren't necessarily breaking the Falcons' way. You had, if I'm Arthur Smith, I'm almost like kind of throwing my hands up. I come into this situation, and in essentially a calendar year, you are down 2 franchise players. You're, arguably your best receiving option is suspended for gambling after sitting out a bunch of weeks for, mental health issues, and then he's suspended for a whole year. Like, you retool from that with, signings of Edwards and Auden Tate and drafting Drake London, and you're starting to feel good about what you're building there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you rightfully so let guys like Jonathan Bullard walk and Mike Pennell walk, and you don't bring those guys back, and you don't bring back guys like Stephen Means. You go out and you draft these young man, come on, Sean. I ain't saying that we was ever gonna re-sign Stephen Means. I'm just laying it out there, right? You feel like your defense is heading in the right direction. You bring in Zoe Carter. You draft these young pass rush guys to make a young group, and you convince Grady Jarrett to come back, because I feel like there was some convincing going on there. You convince Grady Jarrett to come back, and you're like, look, dude, we're going to get you some help, and you go out and you sign a guy like Goldman, who, like you said, had them Poe vibes, who really represented, like, he was going to shore up that nose tackle position. I know that you have Anthony Rush back in the fold, and he's a guy that we're excited about. He's a guy who we feel like can, take another step and really solidify the middle of that line. But Goldman represented like an instant upgrade, from what you had last year, going into this year. And then for him to decide 2 weeks later that he wasn't going to do it, that he was done and taking it home, taking it to the house. Look, at the end of the day, as we always say, we don't know what's going on in these people's lives. Like we really don't. But and it's none of our business in that aspect. So I hope he's made the right decision for him and his family. And so in that aspect, I wish nothing but the best for him. But then that brings up the question, who could you bring in now? A week from camp, do you roll with, Vincent Taylor and, Anthony Rush? Do you count on Marlon Davidson taking a step forward? Obviously, they didn't feel like that was enough. That's why they brought Goldman in, to compete. Yeah. So I got to looking, and the names that are still on the market, I have to say, aren't great. Top of the list is Brandon Williams, 33-year-old defensive tackle out of last play with Baltimore. Then you got 35-year-old Ndamukong Suh. Then you got 33-year-old Linval Joseph. 32-year-old Star Lotolale. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that man's last name. And then you got guys like Larry Ogunjobi, who I actually think is signed. I don't think he should be on this list.
Yeah, he's signed.
Right, okay. That's what I thought. I thought he was signed. But then this does the thing that I don't want to happen. This leaves open for a guy like Tyler Davidson to come back. Because he's still on the market. I don't want Tyler Davidson back.
And no type of capacity. No. We let you go. We let you go the first time for a reason. It's like, we don't need. There was nothing that he put on that field that would even justify bringing him back. Nothing.
So if you're looking for like sub 30-year-old guys, you're looking at Danny Shelton, formerly of the New York Giants. Malik McDowell, which isn't he out of football completely? Malik McDowell.
I thought he was.
I thought he had like a heart issue, something like that. And yeah, dude, that's it. That's pretty much it. I am Antoine Woods. That might be a name. I mean, so I'm slightly concerned. Toby, you had brought up something about the possibility of them trading for a guy.
I don't know who they would trade for, but they're gonna have to make a move to trade for somebody, because Goldman was gonna add more pass rush. That's what you needed. You talked about, Al Smith mentioned about we need to get more interior pass rush this year. And you waited already to the last minute to bring Goldman in right before camp, right? And now this guy retires before camp. Now, I know they have to be miles dropped to the floor because they could not have been expecting or anticipating this to go down and going into camp. So you have to make a move. If you're trying to win this year, you can't ride with Anthony Rush, who to me, I like Anthony Rush, but I see him more as your situational guy for rundown situations, not for a pass rush. That's not what he offers you, in my opinion. No, you don't have that guy on the roster right now. You had that guy with Goldman, but he's gone, so you got to find somebody else. I don't take Quan Graham and Marlon Davidson. To me, they are your 4 or 5 tech guy who every now and then plays on the inside of 2 and 3 tech. They are not your guys that you really relying on to give you some meaningful pass rush and snaps on that third down when you need them to be able to do it. Not in my opinion. So they got to figure out somebody quick.
Now, here's a name I want to throw out there if we're talking about, potential like in-house. Does this open the door for, does this open a window for a guy like Timothy Horn to make the roster? The undrafted defensive tackle out of Kansas State. Y'all know much about?
Y'all want to answer it?
I feel like, because I looked at his tape after we signed him, because I know he was part of the undrafted free agents class. It could, it really could possibly open the door for that. It basically, you basically just it was already going to be fierce competition right there, but we knew we had our guys with Grady and Goldman. Right. So that right there, it just
kind of like put a wrench in
there. It threw some stuff out of whack, that's for sure. Like, I bring up Timothy Horn's name more as like I've heard his name brought up in the like Falcon circles. I've heard some guys that I chat with on a regular basis on Twitter, like they bring his name up from time to time. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done much film work on him. I wait to see, like, as camp goes on, like what undrafted free agent is actually making some noise before because you're gonna have undrafted guys make the team every year, but generally it's in a practice squad type situation or special teams type situation. So, but it was a name that I know has been bandied back and forth as somebody who has got some juice behind his name. And when I was down there at the Benz for that spring open practice, he come up to the line, to where everybody was standing, and he is a big fella. So that's going to be a name I think to keep an eye on between that and between potentially having to trade for a guy. So I expect some form of move in the next few days before we get into camp proper. So
I'll say this about Timmy Horn, because I did get a chance to really watch him extensively when before I did the video by defensive line. I like him as a 3-man, odd man front type of guy. He can play in that type of situation, 4 or 5 tech. He can play in the middle in your 3-man pass rushing situations. I do not foresee him as a guy to play with every 4-down guy. Not 4 downs as in every down, but playing with 4-man front. I don't foresee that with him. I don't see him as that guy to do that. He's going to have a tough hill to climb because he plays similar roles to what Taquan Graham and Marlon Davidson are already playing, which is the reason why I believe they did not re-sign Jonathan Fuller, and that's playing a 5 and 4 tech type of guy, either outside of the tackle or head up on the tackle. That's what Taquan Graham will do. So he's going to have a huge hill to climb. They have to have a guy that was a Goldman that can help get some pass rush out of that 2-tech situation, head up or 2-eye on the inside shoulder of the guard. They're going to have somebody like that, and that's what Goldman was going to provide, because they like to play a lot of 2-eye and 3-tech fronts in a 4-man front. So you had to have another guy not only would be good in the pass rush, but also can provide you some stability in the run game, because you're playing 4-man front a lot in the nickel situations when you're out there. So they had that in Goldman. They don't have that.
Yeah, no, that's something that they're definitely going to, have to address. And the question is going to be, where are they going to address it from? As we just went over, there are slim pickings on the free agent market at this junction. So, can a, Taquan Graham provide that, from the 2-eye spot? Is that something that he can add to his game? I think it was Anthony Rush on one of those Twitter spaces talking about, being versatile and playing up and down the line, from a 2-eye down to the, 5-tech, and, something that, he, prided himself on. So is that something that he can really realistically add to his game? That's one of the bigger, calling cards of Vincent Taylor is, rushing from that 2-eye spot. He's better at rushing than he was necessarily at run stopping. So that may have just cemented his spot. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do and how they handle this latest, hiccup as we're going into camp. Well, that is our opening salvo. So let's go ahead and jump on into chat and see where our folks are at. Keith Weaver says he should have never signed that contract. OMG. Maybe he's talking about Eddie Goldman. I'm not sure. Mississippi Paper says that was a blow. Yes, it was. King 7 says, pound for pound fam, what's up? What's going on, King? Fred Butts, he thinks that Ritter starts week 1. We're going to get into that in a minute. I think that's you talk about a tough hill to climb. I don't think that Ritter's going to start week 1 unless Mariota just falls on his face, but we'll get into that here in just a second. Chris Jameson says, Mariota's NFL comeback player of the year. Nick Bangalow commented on Eddie Goldman retiring. Out with the old, in with the new. Woon Carter says, pound for pound family. It's so cool to see Falcon content creators join together to share knowledge of this game. It feels like the Falcons joint practice. Glad to be here on a Tuesday. Yeah, I guess it is kind of like a joint practice. I guess you could say that. Well, like I said, they were the Extra Point podcast was the gentlemen were nice enough to have us on earlier in the off season, so we figured turnabout's fair play, and we'd have them on. And I encourage all y'all to go check out their stuff. They do a real good job, and with their breakdowns and their knowledge, and just have a real good vibe about them. Obviously, that's why they're here. All right. Let's see. We're going to keep on rocking. Y'all like my assistant tonight, don't you? Let's see. Jay Black says, what happened to the Falcons D? Well, okay. We ain't sunk yet, okay? there's also a possibility that we haven't gotten into with Goldman. We might be heaping too much expectations on what Goldman was going to bring. Like, as I said, last year was his worst year. He sat out for COVID. He obviously didn't have the football drive anymore. So maybe he did us a favor in that aspect. Just, what do y'all think about that? All right, go sit down.
I mean, you're right about that though. What if he would have came here, been an absolute flop for us, and I would just like, telling him that as well. Like, I guess you could look at the way that the Falcons saved some type of money, but we wouldn't know what Eddie Goldman we was gonna get anyway. Right. But it was nice to see them go after a player like that. That's all we asked for.
I can agree with that as far as we don't know which Eddie Goldman we would have gotten, because to my knowledge, last year was one of his worst statistical years. And that was because, sitting out that whole year from COVID the year before, which was 2020. Mm-hmm. So they said his so I know his pass rush rating was down, tackles in the backfield was down, his entire body of work, just everything that he usually flourishes at was down. And I also found out last year when he did come back, he sat out of all OTAs, OTAs, minicamp, training camp. He sat out of all of that. And I don't know if that was just to get back into the groove of things or not. I was, because I'm a Falcon fan, I was on the bright side of hoping, he would be able to recapture it, because he will have got a stalwart with Grady Jarrett right next to you. So, that's already going to take a load off you as is. So I was just hoping, that, he would be able to regain that or recapture that play that he did have. But, it was a flash in the pan. I felt like it was a good signing, especially this late in free agency, because I would have never assumed that he would still been there.
Right.
Like, because I was the whole offseason, I was harping on Akeem Hicks, but Tampa.
Well, they didn't want to put that $10 million towards Akeem Hicks.
That too. So So I can't fault them for that. I mean, it was a good sign later on, but we'll have never seen this happening. We'll have never seen this happening. So I'm like, now it's like, are you gonna move someone up within, or are you gonna go back? Are you gonna start dibbling and dabbling with your trade assets next year? Mm-hmm. Because that list, I don't.
Ain't no sexy list at all.
Because for Sue 35, and he gonna want entirely too much. And everyone else on that is 33. And I don't have no problem, because, that's veteran leadership. But I'm like, it wasn't going you really weren't going to get from them, what Goldman was going to bring to the table.
All right.
So I'm like.
Now, I think y'all can still hear me. My video just froze on me.
Yeah.
Okay. So y'all just get to look at my stone face for a second while I'm figuring this out. Toby, while I'm trying to figure this out, man, I just lost this. I totally messed up my train of thought. We were talking about, like, okay, there was a text you sent me talking about getting that 2018 Eddie Goldman. Like, that had to have been something in your mind that you were thinking, what was the chances of not getting that guy? You know what I'm saying?
Because he didn't show that guy last year. And I think it has to do too with, you got to think about, certain coaches are able to coach certain things out of you. And when you're dealing with guys like Big Fangio, and you're dealing with guys like Chuck Pagano, they know how to get the most out of you according to what they know they can do within their scheme. And so that's why he played well for those two guys. And I felt like if he could have gotten with Dean Pease would have been able to get the most out of him, the confidence that he needed. Because that guy from last year, that explains a lot. If he missed OTAs and all of that stuff, that explains why he probably didn't have a lot of favor with the new defensive coordinator there. And cause the first 3 games he was inactive for the season for last year, and then he had COVID. He tested positive for COVID, so he just didn't have a good year. And he was getting dogged a lot. You can see he was more times on the ground than he was knocking somebody else back last year. It just seemed like he just really wasn't there. And the frustration was showing too, because you get upset with certain guys and push them back when they were pushing on them. So it's still very disappointing, because the Falcons obviously know they don't have another pass rusher with Grady Jarrett on his roster. Now, if they feel like they can get one and produce one out of Taquan Graham or Marlon Davidson, I didn't even talk about Jalen. Dalton, I think out of New Orleans, but he's not even a guy that nobody.
I forgot he was on the roster.
He's another same guy. Yeah, so he's the same. He's really the same guy as Taquan Graham and them. So it's like you got a bunch of ends. They can play in the middle, but you don't have that true pass rushing 2-eye guy. You needed that. Even if Goldman didn't pan out, he still was a guy you was potentially seeing what he could do anyway, just like everybody else on the roster.
Willie Doc tipped us $5, which we appreciate. He said, "Thanks for the great content during the dead period. I appreciate the entertainment and the education." That's what we're trying to do, right? And it's not like, we're the things that catch our interest are what we try to then bring to y'all, and we appreciate y'all's continued support through it. All right, let's get back into the chat. Big Truck Trap Star says, "This is why Jordan Davis should have been the pick all along." I wondered how long before something like that was going to come back up. Hey, you go. I want to hear back from you when Drake London is mossing people and catching those full extension contested catch awesome touchdowns that we hope he's going to be catching. Anyway. Willie Butler says, "We will be in the storm too long. He was our next Rod Coleman." Possible. Our good buddy Chris Jameson says, "No Tyler Davidson, please." Yeah, no, we don't want to bring that guy. No, we good. Ghost Pepper, our good buddy Ghost Pepper says, "What's good for P for P?" He says, "I got to keep it 100. Goldman should have retired before signing with our Birds. I don't even get why he signed in the first place if he wasn't sure he wanted to play. Maybe it was a deal where, he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then, like, as it got closer, he was like, no. I mean, we've all been there. But my closest analogy is when you make plans with somebody, and then when the day that you're supposed to go hang out or supposed to go to that barbecue, you're like, no, man, I would just rather stay at the house. So that's close as I got to it. Let's see. Isaac Crime says, Terry has a plan, so it's nothing to worry about. And like I said, I'm not super worried right at this moment. It's just your options are slim unless you're wanting to go trade for a guy. That's the thing. But hey, they wanted to be aggressive and get wide receivers. They went out and traded for Brian Edwards. So that does show you that they're not above doing that. So we'll see. Atlanta GA Faithful says, dang, we got to find a replacement. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that we're going to have to do. David Breland says, Timmy Horn is a beast. He's a guy that, like, once we wrap this up, he's a guy I'm going to go look more into and see if, like you say, Toby, is he a straight, like, 4-tech, 5-tech, or, is he a guy who can, shift into that 2-eye? Let's see. Fall Star Falcon says, trade for Fletcher Cox. I would love to trade for Fletcher Cox.
Well, I thought about that today.
Well, you know what? Like, right there, like, I would, me personally, because I would look at it as Terry know they have that extra 4th rounder in their back pocket from the Julio deal.
Mm-hmm.
I would, because I don't really see them letting Fletcher walk. I would more so try to talk to Villa and see what a 4th rounder let Hargraves, on over, and then you just let Jordan Davis hit it head first with Fletcher.
Right. And now,
right out the gate.
Ray Fitty just brought up a name that we were bandied about at the early parts of the all season. He says, "Hey, P for P, do you think we could trade for Daron Payne out of Washington?" Now they declined his 5th-year option. Now I wouldn't be giving him no 4th because you don't have that 5th-year option to exercise. But if they're out on Daron Payne, that might be somebody you could bring in.
Yes, because I mean cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I apologize. I know once they declined it, I was intrigued. So I just kept looking at it, keeping up with it to date. Just looking at the rumors around it, and then I know till this day, like people was reaching out to them trying to trade for them, but they have been very reluctant, to actually pulling the trade off. Yeah, they declined his 5th-year option, but they've been very reluctant, as to trade him. I don't know if it was because what people were offering,
right?
But they have been very reluctant to trade him. I mean, it could change, but I know up to this point they've just been like, no, like we're not trading them.
Yeah, no, and that would be, like I said, it would be interesting to see what they do to address this position. Mark Turner says, "I want to see every player play with 100% heart. Like you said before, if they don't want to play here, adios. Commit 100% or be gone." In a sense, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I don't want no half-heart heroes. When you go to work, I know a lot of us don't give 100%. But that's what our bosses would like to have from us every day is 100%. And that's, what we want out of our, football players is 100%. If you're not 100% here, then, it is probably best that you move on. So in that aspect, I'm glad he did it before we got going. I wish he wouldn't have signed at all if that was. They always say if you're even entertaining the idea of retiring as a football player, then you probably should just go ahead and retire. So I highly doubt that something changed his mind in the past 2 weeks. So it was probably already there, and he should have probably already pulled the trigger. But enough about talking about a guy who ain't on our team. Let's keep this train on a moving. Fred says, the reason I think Ritter will start, Arthur Smith will love him and didn't talk about Matt like he does Ritter. All right, so let's start out there, right? We're getting into camp, and they finally got Ritter under contract today, which I'm not exactly sure what was taking long. If it was just like terms of when money was going to be guaranteed. I think it came out in the details of his contract, like it's all guaranteed like the 5th day of training camp or something like that. It was some weird language. So that's probably all that was holding it up. They got the language hammered out. He's good to go. So what I was saying earlier is I realistically think that right now it's Mariota's job to lose. Yeah. Like nothing I saw early in the spring, like the throws that Ritter was making, like didn't necessarily. Hold on, I just noticed this. He didn't ask a question. I'm sorry, I interrupt my own train of thought. Jay Black tipped us $5, which we appreciate, as always. But he didn't throw a question down. So if you wanna throw a question in there, feel free. We'll try our best to answer it. Anyway, all right. So back to Ritter and Mariota. That's like battle number one, right? That's like, because right now, technically speaking, like we don't know who our quarterback is. So that's what all eyes are going to be on. So I want to start with the extra point, guys. What do you think Ritter has to do, or what do you think Mariota has to not do for Ritter to be starter by week 1?
Well, I honestly feel like it is. I know that, they're going to let him compete and all of that, but I honestly do feel like it's Mariota's job to lose. Mm-hmm. I get the just wanna give it to Ritter. I was like, but unfortunately, it don't really work like that because you also gotta take into perspective who we playing week 1. That won't be no easy task.
Right.
That out the gate. That won't, and then also you gotta put into perspective. I know Arthur had mentioned, touching up the trenches on both sides, but I'm like, week 1, do you want him behind that old line?
I
don't. we know what New Orleans gonna come with. I mean, year in and year out, the D line is just ferocious. Now, if we do touch up the O line and things of that nature, to at least be at a competent level, cool. But I honestly feel like it's just Mariota's job to lose, and Mariota, I honestly feel like will have to go in training camp and just stink it all the way up.
Exactly.
For them to be like, no, we're gonna have to roll Ritter. I don't think they just gonna give it to Ritter because they drafted him in the 3rd round. It's going to be competition, and if Ritter just outright just outplays him the entire preseason, because I'm holding Arthur to that having everybody play.
Yep.
I'm holding him to that. So if Ritter I'm talking about from training camp to preseason, rolling into the regular season, he just outright just plays them. You know what I'm saying? From goalpost to goalpost, then you pull it. But other than that, I feel like it's Mariota's job to lose. I'm like, because you basically have 2 guys at the quarterback position with a chip on their shoulder. You got one who lost his job in Tennessee and then had to sit down for 2 years. And to some players, that actually worked. Because, sometimes you can get thrown in the fire so quick that, you just learning on the run. You're learning on the run. But then sometimes, just having to sit down and, just actually just study the game, see where you went wrong, see where you went right, learn from that. And then you got Ritter, who felt like, we knew wasn't going to be no quarterbacks going early, but, you have that competitive nature in him who felt like he should have been going way ahead of where he was selected, and he turned Cincinnati into a winning organization. So you have the fire competition from that end of the spectrum too. So I just feel like just all across the board, even starting with them, training camp is going to be very interesting. Like I don't see neither one of those guys lying down. I think they're going to take it
all the way.
They're going to take it all the way until a decision is made.
Antonio, anything you want to add to that?
Like y'all been saying, I feel like it's Mariota's job to lose, and he would have to be like bad, like fall on his face type of bad for Ritter to get that starting now week 1. You don't want a rookie quarterback, especially if you got a veteran in front of him, starting week 1 versus your rivals. In the year that y'all trying to make a statement to where that we're gonna be competitive each and every game. You got your first test week 1. Yep. And you don't want your rookie quarterback unless you 100% confident that, hey, he's outshining Mariota and this, that, and the third, we can throw him out there. I think it's his job to lose. And even during the season, if somehow Mariota starts slacking around week 4, week 5, then I could potentially see where, Mariota had that hot seat, Desmond Ritter might take it from there, but week 1, you got to give it to Mariota for now.
Yeah. Toby, what you thinking, brother? What you feeling?
I don't care who starts.
Toby said I'm so tired.
I really do not. I'm so sick and tired of this piecemealing defenses and piecemealing offensive stuff. I'm so ready to get to 2023 because that Goldman thing really stung me. It stung the mess out of me today with that. It just made me get back into reality that this is a piecemealing team looking for potential out of these guys. You don't know what you're going to get out of Lorenzo Carter. All right. You don't know if you're going to get that guy that was playing lights out the last 4 or 5 games of the season. A lot of these guys, you don't know what you're going to get out of them. So you're hoping for the potential of what they showed flashes of shines out this year, and the coaching staff can get it out of it. This Goldman situation really stung me today, and it made me realize where this team is really at. You didn't want to spend any money to get Akeem Hicks, who's now over there with Tampa Bay Bucks, right? Yeah. And I hope this is not another Javonte Wiggins situation where you passed on Perion Winfrey, who was right there. You took Troy Anderson, right? And you had Perion Winfrey, who was right there, that you passed by multiple times, that was right there in your face. And now you're sitting in a situation where you sign a guy that didn't even love the game, and you preach you're looking for tough, smart football players that love the game of football, and you sign a guy that gave weight on you in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, going into camp and retires on you. I don't like that at all. And I try not to be negative Nancy about the situation, but doggone it, I'm negative right now. I don't even care who starts, because it doesn't really matter if Ritter starts behind this sorry line, or it doesn't even matter if Mariota. Both of these guys are trying to get their career off. If to be honest with you, I prefer Ritter to start, because Mariota, I don't care what y'all saying. Chris Jackson, you know I love you, man. I love you to death. You really believe in Mariota. But the guy got benched by the very guy that's now going to be head coaching him. So what difference is it going to make that wasn't made when he was in Tennessee? Right. I don't know.
No, yeah. I completely understand and feel the frustration that you got going on right now, and I would love to like make the joke, but I do thoroughly. There's a part of me that enjoys when Toby gets fired up, and the reason why I say this is because generally, it's very like collected and thorough with the thought. But I completely agree. Like, I've been saying this from Jump Street, from the last snap of last season. It's like this year, my expectations are an all-time low. Like, full on, flat out. I have never in my Falcon fandom, which I admit isn't as long as some of y'all's. Y'all know my story. Like, I have never come into a season with this low expectations before. Straight up and down. The idea that, yes, you are hoping for a lot of breakthrough. You signed a lot of guys, and the pitch to signing these guys was, hey, look, we're going to sign you for cheap this year. You play real well, and we're going to sign you to a long-term deal next year when we got the money. Like, that's the pitch, And I get it. That's how you got Lorenzo Carter here. Casey Hayward is probably one of his last, checks or whatnot. But these are how you got these guys here, Alden Tate and all them. Hey, man, you come in, you compete, you got opportunities here, and, you perform, and, you'll get paid next year. So whether they want to admit it or not, whether they want to talk about it or not, they're not expecting nothing this year. You can't with what you got right now. What you're expecting and what you're looking for and what you're hoping for is growth. Is what you're hoping for your rookies from last year to take a step forward. You're hoping for Richie Grant to show why you took him in the second round. You're hoping for Jalen Hawkins to be that ball hawk that he was at Cal. You're hoping that Terrell takes yet another step forward. You're hoping that Taquan Graham and Ogundeji, take a step forward. That's what you're betting on. You're betting whether we can make the jokes about it all we want to, but they're betting that, Jalen Mayfield takes a step. And before we get into that joke, where are the biggest steps that are made? Like O-linemen that transfer, that transition from tackle to guard, their biggest leap is in year 2. So that's what they're betting on. But
a lot of betting.
Exactly. That's the deal. It's a lot of betting. And as fans, you took we took what we saw in the Eddie Goldman signing as a signing of, okay, you know what you're getting there. And you know what you're getting there, and you know what you're going to get out of Grady Jarrett. And we were looking at it as, this is a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And for, the news to come down today, it does, send it back into the realm of, I don't know what this team is going to be. I don't know what this team is going to look like. I can show y'all all where in my downtime, I'm over here like literally drawing plays, like watching the film, drawing the plays up and trying to figure out what is this thing going to look like, and what are the route concepts? What are, because that's all I heard all offseason was like, oh, it's not very creative. Okay, so if they weren't creative, was it because of the talent that they had last year? Was it the loss of Ridley? These are the questions that we had to ask. So, yeah, Toby, man, I feel that frustration. I get you trying not to be negative Nancy, but in this particular situation, I think we call it like just being real. And
because it's
man, I just hope that Troy Anderson is who y'all thought he was, because you had Travis Jones that's also was out there. We went to the Senior Bowl. We watched these guys up close. We saw Kareem Winfrey. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. We saw this guy
absolutely
demolish offensive lines, and teams was just letting them passing them by for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason was.
Both of them just kept falling. I was like, we're gonna get one of them.
You bet it. Yeah, you bet it on Troy Anderson. So Troy Anderson and Richie Grant from last year, they have to pan out, because Javonte Williams is about to move on to be a superstar over there with the Broncos, especially with Russell Wilson over there. That's a known fact. He already showed that flash of that last season, right? Yep. And if we watch Perion, who he ended up getting drafted by the Chargers.
I think so, because I know Baltimore ended up with Travis Jones.
Wasn't it Cleveland?
Was it?
Oh, Cleveland, yeah, Cleveland.
Cleveland.
So, I think it is Cleveland, yeah. And so you best to hope that you didn't just pass up on somebody that could have solved this problem, was young and was already your player, for somebody else that didn't even love the game. And I think that's what hurts me the most, because you preach this smart, tough football players that love the game of football, and I don't know how we couldn't see that this guy, whatever bill of goods he sold them to sign that 1-year contract, it must have looked real to see.
This is
or did it have a lot to do with what's his name? Pace?
Yep, right. That's me and you was going in the same direction. That is that's a perfect example of a GM bringing in a guy he's familiar with. Right now you got Ryan Pace in here as the assistant GM, and we remember making jokes about like who's in control, depending on what the signing is, whether it's Pace with a Bear signing, Fontenot with a Saint, or a what we would consider to be a reasonable signing, or Arthur Smith with a signing of Ferguson. These coaches, they get coaches and GMs, they get comfortable with the guys that they're familiar with. Like for a GM, they're familiar with working with those agents, so, when they're like, a lot of them share the same agents, so an agent picks up the phone and says, hey, my guy's sitting here ready to go to work. All right, fine. We'll sign him for a, vet minimum. And, so I'll be, as I said last year, or, multiple times this offseason, I'll be interested to see how they respond. When it gets to preseason, like I want to see how Arthur Smith responds to last year's preseason. Like, does everybody play? Or is that lip service? Like, are we actually going to be a team that is accountable? So that's going to be interesting, because like there's reports coming out that they seem to be, super high on Tyler Algier right now, or Algieri, the running back out of BYU. I mean, they're already like in a way labeling him as like RB1. So, that's interesting to see how he's going to look when camp rolls around, because that was an important part of Smith's game up in Tennessee. Was the running game. You say, oh, that's because he had Derrick Henry. He was running the ball even when he didn't have Derrick Henry. Like, I watched enough of, Dante Foreman and Jeremy McNichols running the ball, and who was the smaller back that played for New England, that played for Tennessee for a little while?
I don't know who you're talking about. I just can't think.
I can see him. Anyway.
Lewis. What's
Deion Lewis? Was it Deion Lewis?
Yeah, I think so.
Either way, like, I saw enough of him like running the ball regardless if it was Derrick Henry or not, right? So that's what Smith wants to do. He wants to run the ball. They fully admitted that they wore down Cordell Patterson last year because Mike Davis couldn't get going. But, so it looks like they're going to be leaning on, Tyler Algier, the potentially Damon Williams and Quadre Olison, and the converted, Williams, the cornerback.
I felt like they did that just to find him a spot, because we knew he wasn't going to make it in that defensive back room. And I think they really just want to find a way to keep him on the roster just so he can remain having the return duties.
Yeah, and they also may look at him as the long-term replacement for Cordell Patterson. Like, if you're the return guy. Now, granted, I think Cordell does what he does mainly because of his size and speed. But, maybe they're looking at he can spend a year or so learning behind Cordell kind of situation while being the primary returner. It was Deion Lewis. Yes, Wallace Smith.
Yeah.
Let's see. Wallace says, we can't get upset with Goldman's decision to retire out of the blue because this show is still going to go on, and we got to get out and pick up another free agent. That's what we've been talking about. Like who's out there to get on. Let's see. Fred says, I bet y'all $100 the Falcons make the playoffs. Oh man, Fred, you don't want to put that bet on the table. He says, how can y'all say the Falcons aren't going to do anything when the Bengals made the Super Bowl out of nowhere? Look, man, I get it. Go ahead, Toby.
You want me to say it, or you want to say it? Stop using the Bengals as an example for the Falcons, because they got more talent that they had clearly been building for 4 years over there before that coach even took the head coaching job. Doc. You look at the talent they were building over there. They were building talent over there prior to him coming. They just needed a quarterback that can help get them to the net. Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, was not going to handle it.
I know.
Come on, man.
And not just that. In the previous offseason, they had went out and dropped a ton of money in free agency. They went and got,
and they just did that.
Right. They went and got Trey Hendricks. Was it the pass rusher that was with the Saints? Trey Hendricks. Yeah. They went and got Trey Hendricks. They went obviously dumped on Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon and they had went out and spent a good bit of money in free agency on the defensive side of the ball.
Exactly.
So, which is that should be us. That should be, if you want to use the Bengals, then start using the Bengals next year for us, when we have the money to, address the O line, address D line, whatever holes. It's got to be O line. So that's what I'm figuring next year is got to be like O line specific. And right now, like as far as O line goes, J.C. Tretter's still sitting out there. Like he's still sitting out on the bench.
Treader, Spain. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Quentin Spain, who has experience with Arthur Smith. So, like, these are guys that
it's like, come on, man. Like, training camp that week, and the teams who do need offensive line help, they gonna come calling. Now, I'm like, are we trying to sit right there and wait till cuts happen? That ain't no guarantee.
Yeah, and that's what somebody.
No guarantee.
Let's see. It was Archangel says there will be some good players cut during preseason, and that's always possible. Let's see. Wallace says it was Deion Lewis, our semi friend. I always love when Mad Mike decides to pop into chat out of nowhere. He's talking about, hello, great people. Past love and blessings to you all. Well, thank you, Mad Mike. He says, but the heck with Eddie Goldman. I get it. Like, I seriously do. Like, if you don't want to play, you don't want to be here, don't be here. That's the message of the day in that aspect. Tony Wright says, and JR, I've been saying that for 3 months. Cordell Patterson should be our number 2 receiver with Drake London number 1 and Kyle Pitts a tight end. Patterson needs to play just receiver only. I don't think he's just receiver only. You're limiting the chess match that you can do, but you can, if you have a scale, wide receiver, running back. Last year he was heavy this way. It wouldn't surprise me if he was leaning heavier this way this year. It's shaking out like that.
I'll say this and I'll say it again. You look at the Chicago Bears offense. He's your Tyreek Cohen. Right. He's your receiver and running back. That's what Tyreek Cohen did. He was your change of pace type of guy. You had Jordan Howard over there, who I compare Tyler Algier to. They're very similar in what they can do on the field. And you can put Patterson more as your Tyreek Cohen of the offense, because we run a lot of stuff that Chicago ran when Dave Ragone was over there. We brought that over here. And that's the only thing that I can see that could help Marcus Mariota is what they did with Mitchell Trubisky when he was there. Other than that, I don't know.
And
I feel like it's a mismatch piece because of the simple fact, not only Drake London, and then Kyle Pitts, but you dump draft capital and going to obtain Edwards as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you just didn't go get him, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully he being your 3rd or your 4th best option, because I feel like your one gonna be London, and then Edwards, and then Zacchaeus, because Arthur Smith loves Zacchaeus.
Oh yeah, Zacchaeus does. Like we joke all day, but Zacchaeus does all the things that Arthur Smith wants. Like he's a tough, he'll get up in there in the middle of it. He can take the top off the defense. He can run every route tree and make every play. He's not, your number 1, but he's not a guy you just get rid of, Like Zacchaeus is I think offensively we're in a better place this year, skill position wise, running back wise, than we were last year. Quarterback's obviously up in the air. And O-line, they ain't done nothing yet other than bring in Jermaine Ifedi and Eric Wilkerson. That doesn't move the needle so much to me right now. So, last year preseason told me all I needed to know about this offensive line. You can ask Toby. Before we got into preseason, I was like, hey, man, we might make some noise. We got an easy schedule, yada, yada, yada. I came back from that first preseason game. I was like, nope, done. That O-line couldn't block the water boy. So, I knew we were screwed, I was hoping I was wrong, but I wasn't in that aspect. My expectations got tempered real quick last year. And like I said, I'm going in here with none this year, but I'm watching that O-line. We have, even without Goldman, we have what should be a better D-line with Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie, D'Angelo Malone, second year A.D. Ogundeji, Rush, Taquan Grant, all those guys hopefully should expose this O-line quicker. You have 2 joint practices this year with the Jets and the Jaguars. And Jaguars got number 1 pick Trey, Walker out of Georgia. So, I really hope that they pay attention, you know what I'm saying? And see what happens, if this O-line is going to get exposed or not. All right, we are bumped up over an hour, so let's get back into this chat real quick so we can start wrapping this thing up. D. Sloan, our good buddy D, says, the best way is to play both QBs in the preseason. That's going to show you who will be starter week 1. But both QBs have a lot to show why they deserve the starting role. Smith will get this team right. That's the hope, right? I want to see full halves. Give me a full half of Mariota. And then the next game, give me a full half of Ritter with the starters. Like I need to see that myself. That's what I want to see. Wallace Smith says, but Cordell had not played receiver only since he's been in the league, and he's going to keep that same role. Exactly. Like I said, if you put it on a scale, I think this year the scale leans more towards receiver, but he's still going to be in the backfield. Like, you diminish his threat if you pin him down to one spot. Yeah. Tony Wright says, go and look on YouTube. Type in. All right, here we go. We're going to have this conversation real quick. He says, type in Damon Williams highlights. And once you do, you will see one cut and go running back who is also a deadly receiver in the passing game. He reminds me of Tevin Coleman. All right, my thoughts on Damon Williams. He's got the potential, sure. His one breakout year was the Chiefs Super Bowl year. And out of his 500 yards, almost 200 of those yards came off of 2 runs. So almost half of his production came off of 2 runs. So I'm not hanging a lot on Damon Williams. If he's another guy, like right now, Damon Williams is in the same boat that Cordell Patterson was this time last year for me. Like, he's like, okay, I know he's on the team, but he doesn't move the needle for me. I hope this time next year I'm eating the same kind of crow that I was eating with Cordell Patterson, talking about Damon Williams. Like, I would gladly eat that crow. But as it stands right now, he don't do nothing for me. Do y'all see it any different?
I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, because I get the one cut go and all that, but I was like, just in between the numbers, it you know what I'm saying, it wasn't there, and we already know this team is going to be more and more predicated on North and South, other than East and West. So you're gonna have to show it to me, because just like you also said earlier, they are pushing this Tyler Algier situation, very, very hard. Mm-hmm. Like, they coming, because I'll take Steve White's word for it, because he basically works with the team.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm gonna have to see it, unless you mainly brought him here to be a change of pace. But I was like, you already got your change of pace with CP. So I really see it. Unless, but also like you said though, having CP play those multiple roles. So was that bringing Damian in on a situation to where you have him coming out the backfield and CP going out wide?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that
type of situation where you try to incorporate both of them on the field at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Toby, you see anything different with Damon Williams?
I mean, I've cooled down on Damon Williams since the Tyler Algier situation. It was already said before Steve White said something, but Steve has been very accurate about this team, by the way. And some of the things didn't happen right away, but it did ultimately happen, but I think Tyler Algier is the best fit. And because of this, once again, Chicago-style offense that they integrate into what Arthur Smith likes to do, Tyler's should fit perfectly, because they should know how to use him on the team, because they've seen that in Jordan Howard. They're very similar players to me. So I think that'll work out perfectly. I don't know if Damian Williams, I don't even know if he makes the team, to be honest with you. I think Quadre Olison he's already said he's hyped about the season, and to prove what he has, Quadre might get the chance to overtake him in this, going into camp and in the preseason, because you should have had a clip with him blocking for Marcus Mariota in the practice at the
and Don brings up an interesting point. He says, y'all's thoughts on the fullback. See, that's a place where I feel like, Keith Smith's got it on lock, but if you want to get real funky with it, you could run out a 2-back set with Quadre, as a lead blocker, or even Caleb Huntley as a lead blocker. Yeah. Like, these are things like, I know right now with a lot of people are down on Arthur Smith's first year, especially as a play caller, but I feel like just like with Dean Pease saying he couldn't use 100% of the playbook last year, I think Arthur was in the same boat, especially when he saw how bad the O-line really was. Like, they had to use Lee Smith way more than they wanted to. You can't convince me otherwise. Like, when they envisioned their 2 tight end set, it was Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts. Not Lee Smith having to play an extra O-lineman almost consistently. So, it'll be interesting to see if now, a year under his belt with more players to his liking, as far as like, Drake London's, size and body composition, Brian Edwards' size and body composition. Like, these guys are also very willing blockers on these outside run schemes, which
especially Edwards,
right, exactly. And so, like, that's what you got to have to make that outside game work. That's what made it work for Shanahan, was Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu. The fact that those guys were, 220 plus, moving people out the way. With Russell Gage and Zacchaeus being your primary wide receiving blockers, it just didn't work.
Blow the ball.
Right. And so what I expect this year, as I said before and I'll say again, I expect the team to be a more competent looking team. I don't know if that equates to wins this year, because I don't know if the talent equates to wins this year. But I expect that when we're doing this again next year, we're more confident with the additions that we have made and the growth that we have seen. Like, does that seem about right to y'all?
Makes sense.
Yeah, dude. I just want to see some heart, man. I don't want it to come down the fourth quarter and my defense just
laying down.
They just got defeat in their eyes. Like, I used to get tired of that. Like, I want you, even if you do lose, I know as a fan you gave it your all. You showing me that you got heart. You showing me that you just gonna lay it on the line no matter what them circumstances are. One thing about it, man, you can't teach this. You gonna have it or you not.
And I think that's why I think that's why a handful of guys ain't here. To be completely honest, and there's a good possibility why I think there's, I ain't gonna get into that rabbit hole tonight as we're gonna start winding this thing down. But that's why I don't think Deion Jones is gonna be here. Like, there was comments made early on talking about his leadership skills in the locker room. Like, that said a lot to me right there. So we'll be interested to see how that plays out. I could be wrong there, but what you got?
And I know how you said, when you want to harp on that, too much. I felt like that too. And it just struck to me earlier, Toby D, when you had said, about you hoping the Troy Anderson pick works. I feel like last year you was able to redshirt, Richie Grant, have him spot play and all that. But I don't feel like you can keep going year to year, redshirting your second round picks. Mm-hmm. So I feel like Troy Anderson is going to have to work, because if it doesn't, then that's going to be a blowback on you, because we all knew about the Deion situation. It came real evident, when they wasn't mentioning him. The only time he got mentioned was because media was digging, trying to figure out what's going on. And he was like, oh yeah, he ain't going to be in OTAs and all that, because, shoulder surgery and all that. But I'm like, even when you were just talking about your position groups, they was making it known that they did not want to mention his name.
Yep.
All right. So I'm like, you got to hope that Anderson.
Nick Bangalow says Deion Jones to the Cowboys. Do they got a defensive tackle that we can use that they don't like?
I do player for player.
I'm not against it. All right, gentlemen, we have bumped up over an hour, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up tonight. Extra Point guys, y'all tell them where you're at, where they can find you, Twitter handles, whatever y'all want to give out.
Oh, okay. My Twitter handle is LowG29_. Again, that's LowG29_. I'm heavy on Twitter. I always be on there, making couple posts here and there, you know, commenting on everybody's stuff, you know, leaving likes on there, just the whole nine is. That's where you'll find me at. I'm in the Twitterverse world very hard. So you'll always find me. You'll always find me on Twitter. And then of course on our page, you know, Extra Point Podcast. I mean that's where I'm at. I'm not hard to find at all.
Tonio?
And on YouTube, you can find me at Terror Artist 404. If you type it in all together, I do a whole lot of Madden content, especially about Atlanta Falcons. So you can go ahead and look on over there. And like he said, the Extra Point Podcast, man. Also, type that in all together. We should pop right on up.
Cool. Toby D.
Hey, Toby D 1991.
And as always, y'all can follow me at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. If you want to check out the Patreon, we got that link in the show notes. If you want merch, we got that link in the show notes as well. Like I said before, me and Toby D will be out at Atlanta Falcons training camp. Just look for a real big guy with this logo on his shirt. I will not be hard to miss as I'm a large fella. If you see us, you know, come up to us, say what's up. We'll definitely be glad to shake hands and talk with you. And if y'all are going to the August 15th open practice, me and Toby D will be down there as well. So a lot of chances to see us coming up, shake hands. I don't kiss babies. I don't think anybody should be kissing other folks' babies, but that's a whole nother thing. But yes, we will definitely shake hands, and if you want a picture for some odd reason, we'll do that as well. But as always, y'all can just catch us on our show here, and just keep your eye on the channel as me and Toby D are always putting out content as we think about it and as we want to talk about it. But as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.
Yeah.